Hey guys, what's up? Uh, so it's Christmas, like we established earlier, and since I actually really have nothing to do, since my family went out of town and I'm here watching our three dogs, and yeah, and my girlfriend works today, so really I don't have much to do. So basically, what I'm gonna do is give you guys a little bit of an early Christmas present. And this is gonna be mainly for my older fans, because I don't think to the people who've been following me for a long time, I don't think it's any mystery that I have a sincerely bad habit of saying I'm gonna do stuff. I plan a series and then I never finish the goddamn series. In fact, even newer fans probably know that with my top 10 favorite games of all time. Yeah, that clearly. Uh, clearly, it's going to be a while before I decide I'm going to go back to that. It's been what, like 4 months since I did the last one. Which is actually really depressing because I did actually finish the footage for the next episode. I just can't be bothered to finish it. But today I've decided I'm gonna do my best to sort of finish a series that I tried to do a long time ago and never finished. But I did have a very good reason for not finishing it. Some of you may remember it. I think, was I the sane revelation back there, or was I still Darkness the Curse? I don't even remember. Doesn't matter. But I planned a little bit of a Tomb Raider retrospect where I was going to review every single Tomb Raider game ever. And I did the first Tomb Raider, and then I never did another one, which was fantastic. Did I do Tomb Raider 2? I can't even remember if I did. I don't remember doing it, which implies to me that if I did do it at all, it was probably really half-assed. But I do remember what happened was, whether it was either Tomb Raider 2 or Tomb Raider 3, I swear to heaven and high hell it was 2. I actually recorded footage for the next one, and I was going to do it. But what happened was, and this was during the time where my old Dazzle was hardcore messing up shit, and my computer just wasn't having, because it was getting old and it was starting to malfunction, it just wasn't having anything I was doing anymore. And I actually just looked up some footage now, and it was Tomb Raider 3. I did get that far. Okay, so I didn't get done with Tomb Raider 3. And what happened was when I recorded the footage, and I had it, all done and shit. But the footage was like hardcore sped up. It was like at times 5 speed, so it looked like Lara was like running like 50 miles an hour. It was retarded. And it was really jerky and fucked up, so I couldn't use it. It was unusable. There was literally no way to fix it. So I just said fuck it, and I moved on to other things. But today, for my old fans, I did get some people who asked me about it a long time ago. I'm gonna finish what I started, sort of, and I'm basically going to do a little audio recording and basically talk about every single Tomb Raider game that I haven't already reviewed, and I'll just briefly discuss the ones that I have reviewed. And we'll start with the first one, the very first Tomb Raider game. I have, obviously, I'm obviously a big fan of the original. I think that much is clear. The reason for that, I got a few comments about this statement. A lot of people were really bothered by this. I said that Tomb Raider really kicked off the 3D adventure game. It did a lot more for 3D gaming than a lot of people give it credit for, and it's true. I like had one person, point out, oh, what about Ocarina of Time? And Ocarina of Time, I really don't like Ocarina of Time, but I understood what it did for like adventure games. I get that. Like it was, in terms of the dungeons, did a really good job. But Tomb Raider really started off 3D platformers before platformers were platformers. I call it a precise platformer. It wasn't fast paced like a 3D Mario game or a 3D Sonic game, especially in the latter example. It was more about careful precision and climbing around, more of a realistic platformer, I guess you could say. And obviously, I can't say Ocarina of Time ever did that, because Ocarina of Time, it had platforming, but for one, the jumping was automatic. There was no action button to cling on walls, which is something Tomb Raider did, and I don't think anything else ever did that to my knowledge. And you'd be surprised what having like an action button for grabbing onto walls, just that sense of control. Back then, it was different for a game, and it really helped immerse you in the experience. And it hasn't aged too well. And to enjoy it now, you have to really understand what it was for the time, in fairness. But the other thing it did, and a lot of people, are going to argue with me about this, but it really did kick off the idea of a female heroine. What am I saying? Heroine implies female, so a female heroine is redundant, or an oxymoron. No, it wouldn't be an oxymoron, but it would be, yeah. The idea of a female lead character. Because up until that time, especially in platformers, it always been male. The only one prior to was Samus. And Samus was always in a goddamn suit. So you, like the first game, you never even knew she was female unless you actually beat the game, which beating the original NES Metroid is something to brag about because holy shit, that game is ridiculous. And nothing is hard, you just get lost all the damn time. but the idea of having a female lead was something new, and yeah, I know, her breasts are ridiculous, and she had, an unrealistic form. But the thing about Lara is that in terms of her personality, in terms of the way she presented herself, she didn't have, any, real male supporting cast. She didn't have anyone, holding her hand. There was no male character to remind you that, oh, she's a woman and she can't do anything. No. It was just her, in doing, what traditionally what we would call a male job, a male role. Even when they were developing the game, what they were originally going for was a female Indiana Jones, and that's what they got. And yes, there is some sex appeal in Lara, even still to this day, but it was a different time, and it worked for the audience. It helped kickstart more, I guess you could say, I don't even want to use this word because it implies it's disrespectful, but more realistic female characters in video games, female leads. I'm trying to think of one, and I can't. Offhand, I know there's got to be one. What is wrong with me? Why can't I think of one? Because I swear, there should be more. There have been more. It doesn't fucking matter. Anyway. But yeah, so that was the original Tomb Raider. And then we have Tomb Raider 2. Now, Tomb Raider 2, a lot of people consider it the best of the old school. I don't really... I kind of agree, but at the same time I don't. The problem with Tomb Raider 2 is that it built on what Tomb Raider 1 was. It helped with platforming. Actually, I shouldn't even say it helped. It had some more creative, platform puzzles, but the actual core gameplay was still pretty much the same. The major difference was there was a graphical overhaul, making the game look a bit better. The story, I would argue, was a bit, kind of better, sort of. I don't know, it was weird. But there was a lot more combat in Tomb Raider 2, and this is where I didn't like it, because if there's anything to complain about in terms of the classic Tomb Raider games, the combat was never, ever good. At any point. The combat was always kill them before they kill you, because there was never really dodging any attacks, because the enemies were really accurate. And granted, so was Lara, because she auto-aimed. So it was really a matter of just, making sure you have enough medical kits and shooting enemies before they shoot you. And it was monotonous, because they put so much combat in Tomb Raider 2, and there were some levels that I swear to heaven in High Hell were almost all combat and virtually no platforming. They also introduced more urban environments in Tomb Raider 2, and that's fine. But that was where there were more combat-heavy sections, and it kind of hurt the overall experience, in my opinion. And there were some parts where Lara was doing some stuff that was just so ridiculous. Like at one point, she latches onto the submarine without any scuba gear or anything, and is like over 100 feet under the ocean, and she's holding her breath. Like it's like she doesn't know there's gonna be an air pocket down there, but she does it because she's Lara Croft, and fuck it. And you really have to suspend your disbelief at some points, really. And there's a line that needs to be drawn. What are we come on, that is just stupidity almost. Yeah, there is an air pocket down there, and you can find it pretty easily, and you can continue the level, but it's still like she didn't know that. It's under the damn ocean, and she came from a freaking oil rig that was filled with scuba suits. There is no reason for it. So that drove me nuts. That level in particular. But overall, Tomb Raider 2 was a really good game. For its time, and a lot of people think it improved on Tomb Raider 1. it was definitely a lot longer and had better puzzles, but I think they overloaded it with combat and some parts that were just what really why. But still good game. And then we have Tomb Raider 3. And Tomb Raider 3 is kind of the one that's overlooked. But there is a good reason for it. I would call Tomb Raider 3 DLC before DLC existed. And the reason I say that is it's basically just Tomb Raider 2. Yeah, that's really it. They didn't really add much of anything. I think in Tomb Raider 3 they added Lara's ability to crawl and sprint, which were new moves that she could do. But it didn't really add much to the core mechanics. Plus, the first level is like the worst Tomb Raider level ever in history. Like it's such a terrible level. It's confusing. It's ugly. It doesn't make any sense why there should be a solid path, and it still manages to be confusing at the same time. It's a really bad level. And the second level is like the same thing. It's almost a chore to play through. It's so bad. The actual game really isn't. It's not completely horrible, but again, the problem is that it didn't really build on Tomb Raider 2 at all. It kept things very much the same. So because of that, people just, when you play Tomb Raider 3, it makes you wish you were playing Tomb Raider 2. That's kind of the problem with it. It's one of those sequels that's like, this is okay, but it didn't. It arguably made some things worse because of the poor level design. And then you have Tomb Raider 4. Tomb Raider 4 is not called Tomb Raider 4. It's called Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation. But I'm going to call it Tomb Raider 4 for simplicity's sake. The Last Revelation is actually my favorite Tomb Raider game of the old school games. When I say old school, I mean everything prior to Angel of Darkness. Angel of Darkness is kind of the transition period, but we'll get to that in a second. Tomb Raider 4 is considered by many to be like the final major Tomb Raider game in terms of the old school series. And I really enjoy it. They basically took what they were trying to do with Tomb Raider 3 and actually did it. It had very good puzzles, a very dark atmosphere, and for only being in Egypt, a surprisingly varied level set, despite having only the desert to work with. And by the way, I really fucking hate desert levels, and somehow they managed to make that fun, which is very impressive. And the graphics are probably some of the best you'll ever see in terms of the old Tomb Raider games. And the story is surprisingly interesting. So overall, you have a really good, solid game with Tomb Raider 4. If there's anything to complain about, there is one thing that really pissed me off. And you're not gonna believe me when I tell you. Well, actually, no, you probably are. Because it's the damn Prima strategy guide. And the thing about Tomb Raider 4 is that while it's very good, the puzzles tend to be very, very confusing. When I was younger, I didn't really care to spend time doing that, so I actually bought a strategy guide, or rather, one of my parents probably bought it for me because I was like, 9 at the time? I think it came out in 1999. And I was following the guide like down to a T. Like every single step, that's what I was doing. Cause I wanted to see the ending. I wanted to beat the game, and it was a fun experience. The problem with this guide is that it is it doesn't really lie. It asks you to do something, or rather, use a specific weapon that you do not have the ability to have when it asks you to use it. And this is a very serious problem, because the puzzle that you have to use this weapon for, this weapon, by the way, is the revolver, which you can equip with a scope. And the problem is, the puzzle you have to use to use this weapon for is a timed puzzle, and if you don't do it in like 30 seconds, you fall onto a bed of spikes and die immediately. So when I first did this, I went down, I paused the game, I read the guide, and it says, pull out the revolver, equip the scope, and shoot all the pots. And I'm like, okay, I don't have the revolver. And I must have gone through the early parts of that book like 15 goddamn times when I was younger, trying to find the point where they said, pick up the revolver. Because up until that time, they were pointing out every single ammo cache, every single extra health pack, every single conceivable item that you could possibly find in the early levels. Not once did they mention the revolver, up until the point where they tell you to use the revolver, which you don't have. Do you see why this is a goddamn problem now? And I don't think it's a problem with the game, because it turns out you do have another weapon that you can use the scope with, which is the crossbow, and you can beat the puzzle with that, but just the fact that you don't have this revolver when they tell you to use it is a serious problem. And then they have the balls, or rather the idiocy, to tell you to tell you. I continued through. Once I did use the crossbow, they tell you to go to an area where there's an enemy type that can only be beaten with the revolver, which I don't have, and I don't know where to find the damn thing. I'm gonna assume that the game intends for you to run past these enemies until you actually find where the revolver is specifically located. But yeah, that really pissed me off. So that was the only real problem with the game, was the strategy guide, which really isn't the game's fault. So yeah. Now, and after that, after Last Revelation, they gave us Tomb Raider Chronicles. Now, Chronicles isn't like a straight up game in terms of its plot. It takes a variety of different scenarios that Lara's put in the entirety of her career. It used the same basic gameplay as 4. The problem is, by the time Chronicles came out, the gameplay was getting very tired. It was very arcane by that point. It needed an overhaul. I've again never played Chronicles, but I've heard there are a few glitches that can cause some puzzles to be unbeatable. I've also heard that the puzzles range from incredibly difficult to stupidly easy, which is always obnoxious. Sometimes there's not a glitch, but there's a part where I guess you have to pick up a specific coin that's blending in with the ground, and if you don't pick it up and go straight forward into a cutscene, the coin will not be there when you get out of the cutscene, rendering the game unbeatable. There were a lot of problems with Chronicles. From what I understand, the core gameplay is still, fine, old by the time Chronicles came out, but from what I understand, it's basically the reason why I never played Chronicles, because from the sounds of it, it sounds just not as good as everything else. And then after a few years, they gave us the Angel of Darkness, which I've already talked about at great length. It is the worst Tomb Raider game in the entirety of the series. The whole thing. It is terrible. It's terrible. If you haven't seen my review, I implore you to go watch it if you really want to know. I don't want to talk about it anymore. That game pissed me off so much. It was just so terrible. Like there were so many things wrong with it. It was amazing. I couldn't believe that they would release the game as it was. But from what I under here, the developer of the game up until the Angel of Darkness was a developer called Core, and Eidos was actually the publisher. And Eidos basically forced Core to rush it to get to a release point. And Core actually apparently had a lot more planned. A lot of the plot holes in the game wouldn't have been there. There were a lot more levels apparently planned, and they had to cut a lot of things, and they didn't have time to iron out the bugs and stuff. So really, I can't say I blame Core for what happened. It was Eidos that forced them to release the game as it was. And as it was not ready to be released, which is sad, really. But yeah, it could have been a lot better. It really could have. I wish it would have been. It could have been a really good game if they had given Core the proper amount of time, but no. Release date is far more important. Good job, Eidos. Anyway, so after Angel of Darkness, everyone kind of thought that they were done with Tomb Raider because Angel of Darkness was so terrible. But then a few years later, they announced Tomb Raider Legend. They were giving the series a complete overhaul. They were redesigning Lara to make her look more realistic. They were updating the graphics, creating an entirely new engine to work with. It was going to be awesome. And it was. The new engine is actually a fantastic piece of work. And actually, it was Uncharted before there was Uncharted. Like, the engines are very similar, except that Lara can do a lot more things that you can't do in the Uncharted engine. Certain things are climbable. There's a lot more animations. There are a lot more creative elements in the new Tomb Raider engine than there are in Uncharted, because Uncharted is a lot more combat heavy. Which honestly is one thing I don't like about Uncharted. Interestingly enough, Tomb Raider Legend was a really good game, really interesting story, awesome characterization. They changed Lara's personality to be less hardcore and more like a actual woman that you can relate to, which is great. And she still maintains, that feminine dominance. She still maintains that, she's in charge, she's, gonna get shit done, but she comes off as more realistic, more, more relatable, more understandable, more like an actual person, which is great. And the new voice actress they got for her was fantastic. She has two supporting characters, her assistants. One's named Alistair, and one is named Zip. And Zip was actually a character introduced in Chronicles, and they brought him back. And basically, Zip is her tech guy who creates a lot of her gadgets, and Alistair is her historian who can offer some different insight on some ancient temples. Though honestly, I always wondered why Alistair was even there, because often Alistair would say something and then Laura would correct him, which was quite humorous, and the dialogue was actually really funny. So it was a good game in terms of that. It was funny. It was fun to play. If there's anything to complain about with Legend, is that the gameplay is way more linear than the older Tomb Raider games. There's not a lot of ways to look around. There's not a lot of open world stuff. It's very go straight and you'll get there. The puzzles are pretty good, but very linear and a lot easier than the old Tomb Raider games. The old Tomb Raider games were actually quite difficult. Partly because it was sometimes hard to figure out what things were supposed to be, because the graphics were so old. I mean, they were the first 3D platformers. I mean, it was hard to work with, especially in the first Tomb Raider game. But the game is a lot easier, but still a lot of fun. Then they released Tomb Raider Anniversary, which is a remake of the first game. They retooled the story to work with the new Tomb Raider canon. And they retooled the gameplay to fit with the new engine. They also designed a younger looking Lara Croft. She's supposed to be 19 in the new Anniversary, and I really like how they redesigned her, because they made her look really beautiful, and I really like that. It's hard to argue against that, and she's still the main difference in her personality is that they introduce her as she's new to the Tomb Raider rating thing. She's young, she's headstrong. She's out to prove herself, and this is her first adventure. So the idea is that she's out to prove her worth, and she does. But there's a lot of times she actually makes mistakes, which is a big part of her character development. That's really good in terms of the story, which actually sets up what happens in Underworld. The gameplay, they added a few new moves from the Legend, but mostly the gameplay is the same as Legend. And overall, it was again another fun experience. I liked how they retooled the levels to work with the new engine. I liked the new graphic style. There's a lot to like about Anniversary, and if you really want to get into Tomb Raider, and you want to start with I guess you could say the first game, but you don't like how the old Tomb Raiders haven't aged well, because they haven't. Go with Anniversary, because it is a really fantastic experience. The platforming is fun. The puzzles are great. It's not very combat heavy, which is good. And if you're looking for a really good adventure game that's really built around figuring stuff out, Anniversary is the one you want. And after Anniversary, they released Underworld, which is my favorite Tomb Raider game ever, and one of my favorite games of all time. And Underworld, unfortunately, was critically panned for a few things. And in fairness, when Underworld first came out, it was a bit buggy. There were a few problems. I remember when I first got the game. The most insane glitch happened, and I was like, really? Did that just happen? Did I just witness this? What happened was there was a part where you had to move this block underneath a platform in order to keep the platform from falling. It was a scale, and if it wasn't weighted properly, it wouldn't work. We had to put this block to keep the scale from falling. What happened was I pushed the block in the wrong direction, and the block fell through the floor. I was like stunned. Like I hadn't seen that shit since Sonic Next Gen. It was amazing. Although the game wasn't that buggy, and that was like the only major glitch I ever ran into, and from what I can tell, they've actually patched that since. So now the game really doesn't have issues like that. The graphics they overhauled again to look amazing. Like it is the best looking Tomb Raider game ever. Bar none. I think it's still one of the best looking games on the Xbox or PS3. It is a beautiful game. The water effects are amazing, the facial animations, the character model, everything is beautifully rendered. I mean, it's like, I think it looks better than Gears of War. I really do. It's a really, really beautiful looking game. So there's that, and they also released some of the best DLC I've ever played in a fucking video game, like hardcore. Uh, when you get to play it as, actually I can't tell you that. That would be a huge spoiler. I can't say that. Just if you want to play a really good Tomb Raider game, I would play Underworld. There was like bar none. It is one of the best experiences. But in order to understand the plot, you're gonna have to play Legend Anniversary first. It would help a lot if you played those first. If you want to get into the series, I would play Legend Anniversary first, then move into Underworld. But if you just looking for one Tomb Raider game and you want to see the best the series has to offer, Underworld is what you're looking for. Because the difference between it and Legend is it's a lot more difficult and it's more open, like the older games. So it's kind of fusing the old with the new, and they did it in such a fantastic way. And I only wish more people would have given it a chance. But the problem is when the game came out, people kept comparing it to Uncharted. And the problem with it comparing it to Uncharted is people were like, well, Uncharted is more cinematic, so it makes it better. Which, I'm sorry, that's fucking bullshit, okay? Like Uncharted 2 is a great game, don't get me wrong. I really liked Uncharted 2. But I really, genuinely, to this day, believe that Underworld did the gameplay, the platforming aspect of just the adventure genre, so much better than Uncharted ever has. Uncharted's platforming is always been basic at best. It's like there's auto climbing. He grabs onto everything on his own. There's no real moves other than jumping around. I mean, and combining it with cover-based shooting, and there's too much cover-based shooting, quite frankly, in Uncharted, which is the one thing I don't like about it. Underworld just does platforming so much better, and the puzzles are so much more creative than Uncharted. There's a lot more to like in Underworld, in my opinion. Plenty of people will probably disagree with me, but you know what? That's just how I feel about it. Like, I don't hate Uncharted or anything. I just felt Underworld was more what I was looking for in a platformer, because that's what it is. It is a core platforming mechanic with a little bit of combat mixed in. It's the perfect blend for what I look for in a game called Tomb Raider. So that's Underworld. And now we have the new reboot, and I really still don't understand why they're rebooting the series. Because the only reason they're doing it, from what I understand, is because Underworld didn't sell as much as they wanted to, and now they're making a game that's going to retell Laura's origins, which I think is absurd. And they're going to make it a little bit more gritty, in a really open world, and quite frankly, it looks really good. I'm going to play it. And they redesigned Laura again to make her, again, look more realistic. And she's young again, but it's a darker kind of story, and that's fine. That's fine. I can get into that. My only real concern is the last time they did Dark, we got Angel of Darkness, and that wasn't good. But fortunately, the game, they've delayed it so much, and like when they first announced it, it was still like 2 years before they were going to release it. They have had plenty of time to do this game right, so I don't see them fucking it up. Again, I would be genuinely shocked if they fucked it up as bad as Angel of Darkness. I don't know how you would make Angel of Darkness worse, quite frankly. So, I'm looking forward to it. Definitely going to get it when it comes out. And I'll probably give you my thoughts on it then. I don't really like the idea of rebooting it, but I'm not the developer. It's their call, and I'll probably still enjoy the game. But I'm gonna miss the canon they established with Legend, Anniversary, and Underworld. It was a really good story. But I still have all three of those games. I can still enjoy them. And to each his own. Hopefully, the new Tomb Raider will be awesome. And we'll see. So there you go. That's every single Tomb Raider game, ever, as far as I know. Unless you count, like, I guess iPod re-releases if they even done that. Oh! No, I am forgetting one, aren't I? The Guardian of Light, which is called Lara Croft. It's not actually Tomb Raider. It is a Tomb Raider game, but not. They separated. They kind of separated it. It's kind of like, it's a little bit like Diablo, except with yes, it is a little bit like Diablo, a lot. And if you've seen footage, you know what I'm talking about. But that's actually a really fun game to play, especially in co-op. It's definitely important that you play it with co-op. It's so much better if you do that. But that is actually a really fun game. Story's a little bit weak, but the gameplay really mattered there, and that's actually a really enjoyable experience if you're interested in a good co-op game for the 360, or I think it's released on the PS3, isn't it now? I don't really remember. But yeah, there's not really much to say about it. The game actually looks good for what it is. The gameplay's fun. Uh, and there's not much to say about it. It's a good co-op experience if you want to give that a shot. So yeah. So there you go. That's every Tomb Raider game ever made, as far as I know. Merry Christmas, everybody. And with that, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.